Hi, I'm Brent Haiti, mentor, coach, and ideal life architect with One Wave Life, and this is Calm Waters, the podcast about creating freedom, experiencing balance, and living a rewarding life while also growing a thriving and successful business. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Right, I am here today and excited to be talking with Corey Hill of the Chill Group, Chartered Professional Accountants, and hearing a little bit about his entrepreneurial journey. Welcome, Corey. Good to talk to you today.
Well, thank you, Brent, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. This is going to be good. Corey and I have known each other for a little while now, and I've been certainly seeing and talking with him a little bit about his path as a business owner, but also in terms of life away from business. So Corey, I'd love to hear an awful lot from you. I've got lots of questions to ask you. Let's begin a little bit by talking about your business. Before we really jump into it, tell us a little bit about it. Tell us about your business, and what kind of things that you guys focus on, and let the listeners get to know you a little bit before we talk about you specifically.
Okay. I'm a professional accountant. I kind of got into that industry by accident, I like to say, perhaps even against my father's advice.
Sometimes it
Probably
is,
a,
right?
probably a story for another day. But about actually, this will be 10 years ago. This year, I started up an accounting practice in West Edmonton. We're called Chill Group Chartered Professional Accountants. Um, for the entire time, my focus has primarily been with small business owners.
Yeah.
So I actually had a potential partner, a CPA, that came to me a couple of years ago and said, I like what you're doing. I want you to grow a lot faster, but it's going to require you ditching all the small clients and just going after the really, really big ones.
Yeah.
And he was a pretty good fit in every other way. But at the end of the day, I walked away from that partnership because I love focusing on the owner managed size businesses, the smaller businesses,
Right.
primarily because it gives me a chance to really be able to help them, and
Yeah.
their business is small enough where if they grasp onto something they want to implement, they can just do it. They don't have
Yeah.
to go through layers and layers of a permission and authorization to make small changes. They can make changes as they feel so inspired to do. And so it's really rewarding to work with groups like that. So that's kind of the focus of what we do.
Yeah.
A lot of corporate year end and tax work.
Yeah.
We also do some CRA authorization, like helping people who are having troubles with the CRA or behind or negotiating with them. And then we do a lot of stuff on the personal tax side.
Nice. A little bit of being able to live one's ideal life, to be able to have the thriving business that you love, is to know what you're aligned with, to understand a bit of a deeper sense of purpose of who you want to help, how you want to help them, why you want to help them. Sounds like you're pretty clear on that.
I
So
like to hope so, but I guess always room for improvement.
so you as an accountant, what do you love most about what you do?
Well, so maybe I'll tie in the story I alluded to a moment ago. So
Okay.
the reason my father told me that I probably should never be an accountant is because his sister, my aunt, is an accountant down in the States.
Okay.
And all she's ever portrayed to my dad is how much she hates her life. She
Mm,
hates her job. She
mm,
hates the fact that for 4 months of the year, she is basically owned by the employer that she works for.
yeah.
She doesn't dare plan a vacation or any time off during tax season, and
Yeah.
just is always so tired, always so worn out all the time. And my dad just said, "You're going to hate your life if you become an accountant. So I would recommend you not doing that." Um, so what I decided to do when I decided to become an accountant anyways
Yeah.
is I was going to focus on the aspects of it that lit me up inside, the
Yeah.
aspects that get me excited to go to work,
Yeah.
and the pieces I don't like. It's my practice. I can choose just not to practice in those areas. And so that's kind of been how I've been focusing this. And that's a
Yeah.
large part of why I love coming to work,
Yeah.
is because I've purposely gotten rid of the pieces that I don't want to do, I don't enjoy,
Yeah.
and I focus on the pieces that get me excited.
Beautiful. So was there any points along the way when like are you close with that aunt? Did you talk with her much about her experiences as an accountant as you were maybe in school or considering the path that you were taking, and knowing that your dad felt the way that he did?
Ironically, no. In fact, I've only actually really had one conversation with her about our profession, and that was actually just about 5 years ago at a when I went down to visit her, just as like a relative visit.
Yeah, yeah,
And she just made a comment that she was surprised at how much time I'm able to take off and just go away. And she's like, I don't understand that because I can't do that. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know what to tell
That's one of those questions that, a person that is in business, whether it's the same business as you or not, when they're stuck and overwhelmed and just seeing that that's a path that they've come to believe this is just the way it is, the way it has to be, and I don't like it. I wish it were different, but there's no other way. When they start to see someone that lives differently, a little freer, more time on their hands, can do things, it's natural to have that question. I don't get it. But at the same time, hopefully for people, when they do see that, it also prompts the question of, how can I create that for myself? And that's I think that's one of those questions that it's a shift in mindset that's so important. Of, it can't be, that can't be, for all kinds of reasons that we get caught up in, and we shift to, well, how can that be? How can it be different? And at some point along the lines, you must have, maybe even not even consciously knowing it, asked yourself or challenged yourself even to say, it will be different than that. I want my path to look more like this. And the proof is in the pudding. You've created a business that you have. You designed it the way that you want. And even when opportunities or pressures are coming from outside sources, maybe even from within, you've been able to stick to it, stay aligned with it. I love that.
you. Yeah, I don't know if your listeners would be interested in hearing this, but I just had an interesting sort of insight as you were talking.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way of running a business that is not well adopted, but it's gaining traction. It's called the profit first model. It's not something that I particularly focus on or specialize in, but the principle behind it is most people that run their business know that they've got X amount of revenue and then they've got X amount of expenses, and they just
Yeah,
hope they have something left over at the end to pay themselves.
yeah.
And the profit first model says, no, we're going to flip that on its side. And
Flip
we're
it
going to
over.
say, we're going to pay ourselves first, and then we're going to force ourselves to run our business with the money left over.
Yeah,
And it seems like it's a very interesting, like, tandem metaphor for what you're talking about, which is I can run a business as though hopefully I have a little bit of time at the end of the day for me, or I can put the time for me first and then force myself to run my business on the time that I have left over. So,
it is. It is. Then thanks for sharing that. I'm actually a little bit familiar with Profit First, and that kind of an approach to shifting the mindset, or almost flipping it over, like you said, or reversing it, is it's an important one, and it's one that I do utilize in my work from more of a personal standpoint. We tend to get on that path of influence that we've learned maybe from growing up, or influence from so many things around us, that uh, start a business, get a job, work harder, work longer. That's the path to success. Success means financial success. And once you arrive, once you get there, then you can have a life, right? Start to slow down, take care of your health, reconnect with family, uh, get married, have kids, and travel, and all the other good things, not necessarily in that particular order, or all of them for that matter. And of course, there's always something that stands in our way. There's always maybe a carrot that dangles out there a little bit further to keep us on that same path. So if we flip that around and say, how about if we focus on ourselves first? We focus on having a life first, and see how that will allow us to build health, to build energy, connections, positivity. Uh, because of that, we are able to work on the things that we love to work on. We're going to work a little more productively, a little more effectively, And that's going to actually lead to some success. And that success not only will be in terms of financial and money success, but life success in all different areas. And that influence, if we have a team at work, can be the role model influence that will inspire them in a similar kind of way. The business succeeds, and it brings us back around to ourselves, and we just got almost like a self-perpetuating loop now. And it's counterintuitive, just like in the profit first kind of a system, but it means that our happiness and our overall joy within the work we do, like it is for yourself, being able to focus on the kind of clients and the kind of work that you do, and the joy and happiness that we have away from, they impact one another, right? We are one indivisible whole, and each step influences the other ones. So let me ask you this then. With work as it is, with you working in your business and on your business the way that you now do, what does that mean for your life away from work? Tell us a little bit about what you love about the way that you are approaching and are able to live life away. What are some of the highlights of things that you love to do these days that really bring joy to your world?
Well, it might help if I explain just briefly sort of the different hats or roles that I take on, some
Hmm?
on purpose and some were just sort of invited onto me.
Sure.
Because when I was sitting there writing these down, I was like, oh, there's a lot. Um, right. So I got my work life. That's kind of a given.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, my wife and I just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, and so I
Yes.
try to give time to that role as a husband. My wife and I, we have 6 children, and that's a bit of a handful too. And I need to make sure that each of my kids are getting some dad time.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
I about 2 years ago, the church I attend asked if I would serve as a bishop of our local congregation, which in our church is a voluntold position. It's not paid, but
Okay.
it's equivalent to about 20 hours a week. And
Okay. Yeah.
ironically, they actually extended that invitation to me the first day of tax season. And I
Of
was like, are
course,
you
right?
crazy? But I didn't turn it down. I said, okay, we'll find to make this work. So I
Yeah.
do that now. Um, and so, and in an ideal world, I love helping people as far as like volunteering in the community or helping not for profits. And
Yeah.
there's just so many things I'm trying to always balance.
Yeah.
It becomes an interesting thing to say outside of work. What does my life look like?
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that I'm enjoying now is an opportunity to proactively schedule in my calendar time for each of these areas.
Yeah.
Um, and it's caused me to think about this very differently. But I enjoy the fact that I have been able so far, at least in the past couple of months, I've been trying to use my calendar as my new best friend
Yeah.
to book ahead of time these appointments for these different areas.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure all of these different people would tell you that they would like more of me than I can give and stuff, but none of them I think are suffering. None of them are being completely neglected, as it were. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I really enjoy that. And these are all different things that are demanding, but super
Mm-hmm.
rewarding at the same time.
Yeah.
So is it a lot of work to serve in my church? Yeah, but it's very rewarding. Is
Yeah.
it a lot of work to raise 6 kids and trying to survive a marriage and trying to run a business? All of them are a lot of work, but they're all a
Yeah.
lot of fun,
Yeah.
rewarding work. And so I get a chance to enjoy that.
And that's a really important point along that lines is it everything takes time. Everything takes energy. But when you look at it from the standpoint of how important is this to me, uh, my from your perspective, marriage is important. You and your spouse, your kids, important, absolutely. Your church and your volunteer work with them, important to you. Any one of them could fill up a whole lot more time, like you say, and the essence of balance, and people talk about work-life balance all the time, and very often we think, well, it must be equal parts work and life, and yet it isn't necessarily that. And it's something that you define the way you do, I define it the way I do, somebody else defines it the way they do. And it's one of those things that kind of ebbs and flows as well, from day to day, from week to week, month to month. Certain times, and in the life of an accountant, certainly that's a part of that. We're just coming in to the season where you're going to get quite busy, right? So the ebb and flow of a little more work and a little less on these things is going to happen, but not completely at the expense of. And then when that starts to ease up, then it shifts and changes again. And it sounds like you've got that working well. It's a continuing process, and it changes from season to season, from year to year, as priorities change, as we evolve along through our life journey. What I want you to do now for me is to think back quite a while. We talked a little bit about your business and when you first started out about a decade or so ago. Was it always working like this, where you had essentially somewhat of a handle of the various important areas in your life, and being able to balance the time, the energy, the commitment, staying true to what you could, even though that there was some pressures from some outside ones to be able to do more? Was it always this way and this seemingly easy for you, even though I'm sure it probably isn't?
Well, the very way you're asking that question suggests that you know it hasn't been.
For most people, it hasn't. But you know what? It's not always the case. So tell us a little bit about when things weren't going so well. What was it like? What kind of stresses, what kind of pressures that you put on yourself or came from elsewhere?
Well, here's a couple of things that come to mind. When I was first starting out, and I imagine most business owners are this way, money's really tight. And in fact, maybe even that's generous. It was like, I know when we started, I was living off of savings and unfortunately credit cards, and money was tight. And so
Mm-hmm.
when money's tight, you kind of make less than stellar decisions sometimes. And some of those decisions include taking on clients, anyone who will say yes, even if they're really not a good fit for what you want to do or how you want to spend your time, or if they're
Right.
the ones that are going to eat up a lot of your time and fight every inch of the way about the bill, you're still going to take them on because there's somebody saying yes and you feel like you need the money.
You feel you have
Um,
to.
so that's one of the things that I think has been there for many years that I've really tried hard over the last few years to drift away from, is feeling the pressure to say yes to everyone that says they want to work with us,
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on saying yes to the people that are actually a good fit for how I want to spend my time and would be a good fit for what we thrive in doing. So definitely at the beginning, I was not so picky. I was happy to take on anyone because I had bills to pay, and no matter what it was going to cost me, I was going to spend the time and energy and pain to say yes to every client
Yeah.
that came along. Um, and like I said, when finances are tight, um, you make some less than stellar decisions too. Get stuck thinking in the short term of how am I going to get through today and tomorrow? Who
Mm-hmm.
cares about 2 years from now? I just got to deal with today.
Mm-hmm.
And then you spend a lot of your time putting out fires. It's hard to have time to be proactive on anything when all of your time is spent reacting to all the problems just right in front of you. Um, so those are some of the things that I think of when you ask me, was it always peachy for me?
Uh-huh.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Ironically, though, I look back on some of those hardest of times. I remember a period about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, where things were particularly tough in a variety of reasons and ways. And I went home to my wife one day and I said, I think I'm going to quit. Like,
Mm.
not only just like quit my business, I think I want to just get a completely different career path. I hate
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
The fun, the excitement, the rewarding is just sucked out and gone.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that I didn't follow through with that sort of thought pattern, but definitely
Why do you
been
suppose that
there.
was at the time? In part, I imagine because of the taking on certain clients that weren't exactly the easiest to work with for many reasons. But were there other reasons that other things that were kind of standing in your path, having you feeling maybe this isn't it anymore? Maybe I need to look in a different direction. What was going on with you? Do you recall any particular things?
Um, well, one thing that came to mind as you were asking me that just now, obviously one of the things that was different when I first started, it was I was the only guy. Like I didn't have a team, I didn't have employees, it was just me. So not only did that mean that I had my time stretched, but I needed a website. Well, I didn't have anyone to build it, and I didn't have money to hire someone. So guess what? I became the website builder
Mm-hmm.
guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have money to outsource IT, so I became the in-house IT guy. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have anyone to help me with marketing, so I became the figured out how to market guy. And so it's it's overwhelming to try and do a lot of things that I'm not feeling like are my specialty or that I'm really trained to do, but
Yeah.
necessity of money or time makes me feel like I have to be the one to do
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So one of the things that has changed for me over the past several years is not being afraid to hire people or outsource to people who specialize and are really good at areas that are really not my forte and
Yeah.
letting them handle that so I can free up my time to do other things. But in the beginning, I wasn't doing that. I was trying to be every
Mm-hmm.
role. So
And at the same time, I imagine when you're thinking about giving up some of those roles that aren't your forte, you don't really like them, you probably become competent enough in doing them over time, but that's not really the point. Then you mix on the other side, like you said, of um, a little concerned about income coming in and taking every client that comes along. So thinking about hiring someone and paying them when you've been doing it yourself, when at the same time you're wondering about clients coming in and taking everybody, that sounds like it might create some inner turmoil around saying yes to those particular steps or saying no to those particular clients. So was there was there a time when you were able to think to yourself, let's go on the client side first, of I don't want to work with these particular types of clients anymore for a variety of reasons? What helped you kind of turn that corner to start to say no to certain clients and inadvertently opening the door to the ones that you really wanted, even though you maybe didn't see it that way? Let's talk about that one first, and we'll go back to the many roles. What was there a certain shift that happened, or how did you begin to start to move forward in that way?
um, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but what comes to my mind is regarding around value and pricing. Um, like traditionally accountants, and I think this is slowly changing, but in the past, especially accountants, lawyers, especially as well, tended to bill by the hour.
Yeah.
Um, it's an okay model, but it's a really hard one to scale. It's a really hard one to feel like the only to get out of the mindset of thinking the only way to make more money is to spend more time because I
Yeah.
bill based on my time.
Right.
So one of the things that I've was kind of been a shifting moment for me is changing the way that we price, um, moving completely away from an hourly billing by time model into a package priced value model,
Yeah.
where no matter how long this takes me, whether I am able to do it efficiently in 2 hours or it takes me 20, I'm going
Yeah.
to build a client a predetermined, transparent amount of X, which includes all this value add. Um, and therefore, I can spend my time in that fun value add stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of deters away the clients you don't want, anyways, um, because they either don't see the value in the ad
Mm-hmm.
or the price scares
Mm-hmm.
them. But the clients that stick around actually become way more loyal,
Mm-hmm.
um, because they're not there based on you being the cheap person. They're there based on you being the quality or the um, just having a good fit for what they need,
Yeah.
getting along with you well. And so that pricing and the way we thought about pricing, I think, was a huge catalyst in changing that mindset. It was okay to say no to these people who want our services and they didn't want the value pricing model. That was okay because there
Yeah.
was enough existing clients who did. And then we were able to make more money with existing clients, even saying no to new ones. So,
Nice. Yeah, that shifting from trading time for money, the hourly fee concept to paid for value is a really good step along that way. And it's something that, like you said, in your industry, it's a process that's shifting along, and other ones like the legal industry, but it's also something that can apply to a whole lot of other industries in a similar way. So love that. Thanks for sharing that. I imagine as that started to take hold, it probably made it a little bit easier to start to let go of many of the other hats that you've been wearing. Was there any other limitations that you felt in giving up different roles that you had that you didn't really want in order to be able to free up time and energy and focus and be able to move forward?
Well, I think it's easier to give up stuff I don't really want to do anyways, or that are not my forte anyways. Hence
Yeah.
marketing, IT, whatever. I already know that's not my wheelhouse. So feeling like I want to outsource that, I mean, that's a given. The
Mm-hmm.
harder part is outsourcing the parts that I feel like I am really good at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, if I rewind back to when I started this practice, I did something that's a little bit unusual, especially in the accounting industry, which is we came up with a mascot. So on all of our stuff, we have a penguin. We
Yes.
named him Tux, and he shows up on everything. He's on our email signature. He's on our signage. He's on our stationery. He's on everything.
Yeah.
And people always ask me, Corey, why did you create a mascot? I've never heard of an accounting firm having a mascot before. And all I told them is 5, 10 years, 20 years from now, when people ask who their accountant is, I don't want them to say it's Corey
Yeah.
because I can't scale that.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if they say, oh, I'm with that accounting firm that has the penguin,
Yeah.
I'm with those penguin people,
Yeah.
then it doesn't have to be me doing the work anymore. It's coming
Yeah.
from our firm, but it's not me specific. And that is scalable. And
Absolutely.
so I liked that approach of making this practice bigger than me so that I could bring on people that even the accounting work that I do specialize in, it doesn't have to be me doing it. But that's hard because most business owners, and I'm no different, would find that nobody else can do stuff as well as you can in your
Mm-hmm.
chosen field,
Yeah.
right? Nobody else is going to treat these clients as good as I would. Nobody is going to do a tax return better than I would, or whatever that looks like for a business owner. So letting go of some of that control to trust that another person can do something just as good as you,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they might do it in a different way than you would,
Yeah.
that's hard. That's really hard. But that was a key catalyst for me too, is
Yeah.
not just giving up the stuff I was happy to get rid of, but being willing to put a little bit of trust in giving up stuff that I was hesitant to get rid of.
Yeah.
And that opened up a world of difference too.
Huge. Thanks for sharing that, because that really that's one of the big entrepreneurial traps that so many fall into. Nobody can do it as well as me. Therefore, I can't let it go, or I can't let some of it go. And it is hard. It takes time and effort and maybe some support to be able to, find a way to do so. But when we can ultimately focus on the things that we are most passionate about, the things that we are the best and absolute best at doing, that make the biggest difference for the growth and the success of our business, of our company, and let everything else go in some way to be handled some other in some other manner. That's when we can start to get to that point of freedom. The company can still grow and thrive, and maybe even evolve to a next level if that's what we want. But it means for us as the individual, for us as the owner, that we get to do the things that bring us the most joy in our work, and make the biggest difference. But at the same time, we have some time and energy that we can now, and we need to really consciously devote it outside of, whether that be community or charitable work, or whether that be family, or whether that be health and self-care, anything else that we love and we want to be doing. Because most of us as business owners, if we don't really think about it and time gets freed up, it just circles right back around into our business, because there's always more that we could be doing. So you've had a very focused and dedicated approach, and I really appreciate that of you in a sense of where you have gone. So one more question here, and then I want to turn it in a bit of a different direction. Um, Having been through the journey that you've been through to this point in time, and some of the things that you shared about some of the challenges along the way, what are a few, a couple, or maybe three key lessons or tips you might be able to give someone out there who might be currently feeling stuck or overwhelmed or unable to move forward from where they're at in their business at this particular point in time? What would you say to them?
I don't know if I have anything new to add. I feel like it's just sort of things we've talked about already. Um, making making my calendar a best friend, where I get to proactively schedule in the things that are most important to me, and
Yeah,
then force myself to run my business on the time that's left over, as opposed to the other way around.
love it.
Um, Being willing to let other people do what I'm good at if it allows me to expand and focus more on different avenues that I enjoy. Kind of a side benefit of that I've noticed, that I surprisingly enjoy, is something, I guess I'll call it mentoring. But most of the people I'm bringing on to work with me here at our firm are not people that have been doing this longer than me. Usually they're a lot newer at it, but they have a wonderful attitude. They're excited to learn. They have passion. They have energy. They have a great work ethic, and I
Yeah,
can work with that. And
yeah,
so being able to see someone come on, um, is not only helpful to me as a business owner, but it's another aspect of a rewarding piece where I get to see them go from a starting out person who didn't have a lot of confidence in what they were doing to look how far they've been able to come and learn and grow along the way. And I surprisingly enjoy that. So
nice.
there are multiple benefits, but being willing to outsource not just the things you don't want to do, but bring on people to help you do the parts you do want to do, and trust that they will do it a different way, but
Yeah,
still just as good, or can learn to be just as good.
isn't that a great
Um,
feeling when you have an impact on someone who's newer coming on up and seeing them gradually thrive more and more? It's I love that.
yeah. Again, something we already talked about was just um, pricing structure. So, and I don't know if this is always doable, and this may not be doable in every industry, but if there was ever an industry that was ripe for change, it would be the accounting industry. And it's
Hmm.
nice to see that a lot of my colleagues are kind of going in this same general direction.
Yeah,
We're actually thinking about taking it one step further and changing it to what we're calling an experience-based pricing model, where not only is it based on the value, but it's based on the experience the client has with us. And if
interesting.
their experience goes above and beyond, we'll invite them to tip. If their experience does not meet up to what their expectations are, this is the scary part, but we would give them a discount, recognizing that we didn't live up to our own expectations of what we
Interesting.
wanted to accomplish.
Yeah. A very
Um,
accountable and transparent way of looking at the work that you do and what you deliver.
but I think those things are probably the top things that come to mind. If someone's looking at trying to make key changes and doesn't know where to start,
Yeah,
or doesn't feel like they know what to do, those are probably three areas I would look at.
perfect. Thank you. That's a perfect summary to essentially what we've been talking about for a little while now here. Just to allow people to look at their own world and say, okay, where do I need to best start? And it could be any one of those few areas that you just identified, or maybe it's one by one, all of them. Let's jump ahead then and look at now and into the future. What comes next for you? Where do you hope to take things next as far as being able to evolve, continue to live what I call the one way of lifestyle, or your ideal life, in terms of your business growth and the future of it, as well as your life away from it? Where are you headed?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you that with certainty. I can tell you that I have a lot of things I want to do better, and I think that's a good thing. There's been certain jobs I've held in my past where I sort of peaked at whatever I could do there in terms of job title, in terms of pay, in terms of responsibility they'd give me. And after a while, it stops being fun.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that I know I have way more I want to do and way more I want to accomplish because it makes me excited about forging ahead.
Hmm.
Exactly what does that future look like? I don't know. My wife would tell you that I have big, scary dreams that are possibly not achievable. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know that I want to share them in this podcast in detail,
That,
but I
that's
will
fine.
say that I try to figure out incremental changes, but there are incremental changes to help me get to big, scary goals that I really
Yeah.
want to do. And
Yeah.
for me, that's fun. I like challenging myself to try and see where we can take things. What
Yeah.
is Chill Group going to look like in 5 or 10 years? Where do I want it to be? Well, I love continuing to grow a team. We started with one, we're up to nine. Pretty next month we'll be at 11. Um, I would like to be a 30, 40 person firm, not because I want to be in HR. In fact, I'll probably bring an HR person on because I'm tired
Uh-huh.
of doing it.
By then,
But
no problem. Yeah.
it's really, really fun to be able to grow something. It's really, really fun to be able to expand the amount of business owners we're able to help. It's really fun and rewarding to be able to provide meaningful employment for people. Um,
Hmm.
we don't have a lot of turnover here, and I think some of it has to do with kind of our approach to how we hire and just sort of the in non-monetary perks that come that we've sort of implemented as like culture here.
Yeah.
We don't get much of any turnover employees, and so it's kind of rewarding to be able to provide meaningful employment for people. And I hope we can continue to do that. If all of those things happen, whether we're a 40-person firm or whatever, doesn't matter as long as I get to keep doing those aspects that I love. Um, those are kind of the things that come to my mind when you ask me what the future has for me.
Yeah.
I If I was get diving more into sort of the personal side of things and maybe where your expertise comes in, which is the balance of things and keeping all things in balance. Um, you and I have talked about this offline, but I don't mind mentioning it here in the podcast.
Hmm.
Um, One of my goals for 2024 is to, well, let me back up. If I'm going to be a business owner, then and one of the reasons you might be a business owner is to be your own boss, then I feel like it's important that I can take time off when I want to take time off.
Right.
So one of my big scary goals for 2024 is to have a day off of work every time my kids have a day off of school.
Right.
Now, it seems like they have a bajillion days off between PD days and vacation days and
They do.
bad weather days, but it's really, really a goal of mine to try and be home when my kids
Yeah.
are home. And related to that is every time they have a birthday, um,
Yeah.
I want to be home
Yeah.
on their birthday. Um, Now, my birthday falls in end of February, which is the beginning of tax season. So I always told myself that was terrible planning on my part. But I still force even myself to take my birthday off, even though it's the beginning of busy season,
Yeah.
because again, that's
Huge when
important
it's
to
at
me.
that time of year for you, right? Yeah.
So I hope the future looks like me being able to take
Yeah.
time off to be with the loved ones that I have
Yeah.
when they're off too.
Love it. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. And it really comes down to freedom. When you when you have a mindset of freedom, when you take steps, like you said for yourself, slow incremental steps to create the opportunity to have the freedom to choose, when you then it opens up all kinds of possibilities. You can have the freedom to choose to take the day off when your kids have a day off or it's their birthday because you know that you've got your work and business design that it's going to keep on humming whether you're there or not. You can choose when you have a big huge goal that your wife might think isn't going to be possible and you want to pursue it. When you create those opportunities and you have the freedom to be able to take those steps in that, you can start to pursue it. Maybe you get a part way along and decide, okay, no, it's not happening. Or part way along and it opens up the next doors, the next level of of realization that, hey, this is a real possibility here. Or if you're simply growing your business from 9 to 11 and perhaps on the way to 40 people, working within it and wanting to do so in a certain way, it's the conscious choices that you make along the way. And when we can make those conscious choices with freedom in hand, then we can have the balance that we're looking for. We can make sure that there's time for family and kids, there's time for self, at the same time there's time to grow the business to where you want it to be. So I look forward to seeing how this unfolds and talking to you about it over the course of your year, and the celebrations and great times that you'll have, Dad, with your kids, and your family, but as well as to see your business grow in the way that you want it to be. So let's, before we just wrap things up here for the day, and I've really enjoyed this conversation with you here, Corey. One thing I wanted to ask, and that is, we've had a conversation about a lot of things. You may have felt early on, or maybe even in advance of having the conversation, I wonder if he's going to ask me about this, or I hope we talk about this. What is the answer to the one question that you thought I should have asked you, but I didn't? Is there something that you'd like to add to the conversation before we wrap it up?
Hmm. Um, I don't think there's anything that comes to mind. Um, you, I think the only thing I was going to say, and I don't know that this is a response to a question you may have asked, but um, I've had to come up with this answer by my father on multiple occasions when he's
Uh-huh.
occasionally remindedly grilled me as to why I still became an accountant despite his best
Yeah.
encouragement not to be.
Yeah.
And I turn it back on him. My dad was a doctor, a family physician, and I always asked him, what is it, science? Is it medicine? Why did you choose to do what you do? And
Mm-hmm.
he said, it's because I want to help people. And for
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
helping people looked like the industry of being a doctor.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've come back to tell him and almost anyone else that asked me, why did you choose to be an accountant? Is it the spreadsheets? Is it the numbers? What is it?
Yeah.
I was like, well, I mean, I like that stuff, but at the end of the day, I like helping people.
You want
This
to
was
help
just an
people.
avenue that spoke to me as a way that I could do it.
Yeah.
So I think what I would say, I don't know what the question is, but what I would say is to any business owner out there, or even someone who's an employee who's kind of flirting with the idea of starting a
Mm-hmm.
business, do something for a living, for a career, for a path that lights you up inside, that brings you joy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I definitely could be an accountant and probably even be way more financially well off if I ran my practice in a way that was grueling and always focused on the bottom line and the fact that I'm
Mm-hmm.
an accountant. But when I focus on the aspects that really bring me joy, and that's why I do this,
Yeah.
it's that's it can't get much better than that.
Absolutely. That right there is a, a deeper level, a deeper understanding of your inherent purpose. And you're simply found a way to manifest it to be able to help people. One way to manifest it is through the work that you do. Your dad manifests it through, the medical field in a very different way. It's still at its core, around the idea of helping people, right?
Yeah.
And one day when you no longer have the chill group, or you've moved on or decided to include some other things, or even just right now, if you looked at, other aspects of your life, there's likely an element of helping people that is a part of it, and that's manifesting it through, you talked about your church, you talked about time with your kids and your family. There's ways that you are manifesting that now. So, powerful point that you bring there, and one that I encourage anyone that's listening to say, to ask themselves, what is that for me? What do I, what's the impact I want to make? What's the mark that I want to leave on my world around me? And how am I maybe manifesting it now through the work that I do? Or how can I refine or evolve things so that I am making more of that difference in my time day to day, rather than working on a lot of these other things. And you're there, and you'll continue to move that way in the future. So love it. Now, just to finally wrap some things up here, in our show notes, I'll add some contact information or a URL to Corey and to the Chill group. I also wanted to let you have just a quick moment here, because I know that you also have a podcast, and that podcast is focused on helping some business owners. So just tell us very quickly a little bit about it. What's it called? And we'll also put a link to that in there. So if people want to connect with you to explore more, they can do so.
Oh, sure. This has been a labor of love project of mine I've been wanting to do for a while. It finally came to fruition here just before Christmas. So the podcast is called the Business Speak Podcast. You can Google it, or you just go to businessspeakpodcast.com and it'll take you to a link to all of our stuff. The idea behind it is, I mean, if I back up, I've always wanted to be a teacher because I love teaching. That was another way, as you said, I like helping people. I could manifest it that way. But I felt fairly limited in scope and in time and in reach by being a teacher at a traditional like high school or university classroom. And so I was trying to think about how I could help people on a much bigger scale. And I thought, well, a podcast is a medium that would reach people on a much bigger scale. So the podcast is sort of just an extension of me and my goal to try and help people. If you want to think of it one way, it's like giving every opportunity for the little guy or for the underdog to still have every advantage in being successful in their business venture. So they may not have the luxuries of money, time, resources, skilled people at their disposal to kind of ensure their business success. I want the podcast to be one of the tools in their tool belt to be able to say, okay, you know what? We can follow the ideas and guidance and access the resources that Corey's going to talk about. And even me, who doesn't know anything about business but has a passion to do this, can be successful. So that's kind of the high level point of the podcast.
Nice.
It's only 3 episodes in so far. You were our guest most recently in one. And I'm enjoying the opportunity.
Nice. Absolutely. And you're being very modest. I think you probably know a lot more about business that you're letting on. And a part of that comes through those conversations that you have in the podcast. So thank you so much for connecting with me today, Corey. Corey Hill with the Chill Group, accountant, supporter, teacher, podcaster, lots going on. Living large, living your ideal life. And thank you so much for sharing your story here today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to talking again before long.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, Brent. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening. I hope you have at least one new insight that you can take away and apply to your business or your life right now, and that you've been inspired to rise above the waves of stress, overwhelm, or unhappiness that currently crash down all around you. I hope the message of today's podcast has motivated you to harness the power within those waves so that you can redirect them and begin to ride wave after wave of change towards the calm waters of a thriving business and a life you love. In our One Wave Global community, you'll find our members are just like you. They share many of the same challenges that you face. They want to create and live their version of the One Wave lifestyle at work and at home. And they love the form of mutual support that our community brings. Come check us out at onewaveglobal.com. And if you feel the need for a higher level of direct personal coaching, then contact me through our website at onewavelife.com. Till next time, be healthy, be happy, and live fully.